Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Back to the TARDIS podcast, the podcast where we take a look at every single episode of the 2005 revival of BBC's Doctor Who. I'm Jeff.
I'm Skylar.
And today we are discussing Series 2, Episode 10, Love and Monsters, by Russell T. Davies. This episode differs from many in that it is the first Doctor Light / Companion Light episode of the new series. It does not focus on the Doctor or Rose. Instead, it focuses on an ordinary human named Elton Pope and his experiences with the Doctor. This episode is divisive, to say the least. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be probably the most down on it compared to everyone else, but whatever.
In honor of today about talking about British things that make no sense to me, I've got this warm beer in my hand, and for the CIA person watching me through my computer, I am 21, so it is legal.
Boomer.
But yeah, warm beer. Britain, I don't know what's up, but I'm giving it to you this time.
Is doing bad British accents just like a thing for us at this point? Like, do we just have to have one every episode?
I am not doing it very deliberately. I don't know what we were talking about here.
Look, it's been a while since I've added some cringe to the show, okay? I've decided to post up today.
Why do you need to add more cringe? The episode we're covering is cringe enough.
Fair enough.
Anyways, so the episode starts out, literally, from the get-go, it's Elton front and center. The Doctor and Rose only show up in this episode at the very beginning and at the very end, and we're at the very beginning right now. So he shows up very briefly, having to deal with an alien called a Hoix, I believe, or something like that. And it's very quickly shown from this brief sort of intro that Elton has something of a history with the Doctor. One thing I will say is that for all the problems that I do genuinely have with this episode, I don't think Elton is one of them. I think he is pretty consistently good.
Yeah, the actor acts him like very earnestly, which, considering some of the shifty stuff he ends up doing, is probably helps his character.
Yeah.
I also like the introduction to him. It's very like en medias res, where like if it started off with just like his narration to the computer, which I still think works, it would be less effective than just seeing his reaction right from the get-go. Like, it's very efficient exposition in that way.
You think if you watched fucking Elton's vlog or whatever that he's making, in the recommendations would be Ryan's fucking thing from the season 11 opener?
Yeah, true. It made me think of that, I'm not gonna lie.
I was like, oh yeah, right, that's a thing.
Who is he even making this for? That's what I'm confused.
That's true. They never really, I don't think they ever said who he was talking to.
Is he just sort of like making this for his own posterity? It's not very clear about
awesome.
I don't know
that.
what's up with that.
That is kind of the weakness of these types of things. Like, why is Ryan recording this whole adventure and his thoughts about his gran on YouTube?
That one makes sense.
It makes a bit more sense, but it's like,
But
yeah,
Elton seems like he's addressing a specific person.
yeah, it makes more sense because this has been going on longer, and that character trait of Ryan's really isn't ever followed through on. But you know what? That's that's a whole, oh my god, like 10 seasons later? No,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a while.
It's a while, point being.
Yeah, I do think the introduction is good though. At first, it was like definitely very cringy watching him just like be himself in front of the camera, and I was like,
No,
"Wow,
I
what
that's
are you
one of the
doing?"
things that I respect. I think that works.
Yeah, no.
I-
That's what I realized like as the episode went on. Like, just at first I was like, this feels kind of like weird and cringy, and then I was like, wait, no, that's just like his vibe. Like, he's this weird and cringy guy who just like fell into all this shit, and he's just sort of like watching it and being weird and cringy, and I can relate to that because that's me.
Yeah. And as anyone who follows the Twitter probably knows, I already memed the scene where he's dancing around to ELO.
Masterful.
Also, I do like how they managed to make him fit into the world by being like, yeah, he was there during the Auton uprising and the Christmas invasion. And the line where he had to make like an improvised pulley system to get himself out of bed because there was glass all over the floor.
Yeah, I mean that is one part that I was also confused about. Like, why is he adding that to his blog? Because like, I guess those are things everyone should remember. Like, I don't get. Yeah, I don't know.
It's part of that. It's part of that continuity that runs probably the most consistently through the RTD era, because even when you get to Donna, it's like, even though the joke is that she doesn't remember it, that stuff still happened, and it's stuff I miss in I mean, it's kind of there in Moffat's era, and then Chibnall, who the hell knows, but yeah, it's a nice.
What the fuck is a Chibnall?
Who knows at this point? The jury's still out. But yeah, apparently originally, like in earlier drafts of the script, RTD had like Elton have even more references of stuff that happened when he was younger that would be like references to classic Doctor adventures that he just
honestly, I'm enough of an insufferable fanboy that I would have really liked that. But then again, the episode's already 45 minutes and feels rushed, so...
Yeah, no, it's probably a good idea that they just did the stuff that, like, everybody would pretty much be on board with. Yeah, originally his mother was going to be killed by a plastic daffodil, which I don't know what that's a reference to, but apparently that's a reference to something. I'm on the wiki now, but yeah.
Oh, it's on the tip of my fucking... Hold on.
We're getting in the weeds of classic. Take a drink.
Right?
Yeah. Terror of the Autons. Third Doctor.
Nice.
And Third Doctor and the original Roger Delgado Master. We're also introduced to Elton's friend Ursula, aka Moaning Myrtle from the Harry Potter films. Keep having to drag her back into this.
J.K. Rowling and her unlimited legacy. None of which is good.
Ursula's pretty good too. I really like. Spoiler alert, I don't really give a shit about any of the other characters in this episode, but those two are at least pretty good. I think really, like, part of why this episode I think burns so much for me is because of how good the characters last week were and how little I care about these characters in comparison.
Yeah. I mean, I like the others well enough, but I have my central thesis, which I'm waiting to drop on y'all, but it isn't exactly relevant yet. So,
okay.
Yeah, agreed.
Anyway, Elton talks about how he finds a community of people who had interacted or been impacted by the Doctor in some way and would meet up and talk about him. introduces these whole gang of characters, which I'm not going to bother to introduce because, as I mentioned, I don't care about them, and the plot doesn't take enough time for you to really care about them either, so...
I'm going to push back on this a bit. I don't individually care about them that much, but I think they paint a nice picture, you know? They're
Yeah.
like...
Yeah. As a group, they're important to Elton's story.
Yes.
Yeah, no, as a group they're fine. I just don't care enough to individually go through each one of them.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I don't remember much about one of them, but the other two, like, I remember one was, like, the, pretentious art lady, and the other was the writer dude who liked the other girl, like, and I wasn't paying that close attention to the episode, but those characteristics stuck, like, if I had to list off characteristics of them, I probably could. So, I don't know, I feel like there was enough there to, like, mark them as characters.
They're characters, they're just not very interesting ones.
But they don't need to be interesting ones to serve the purpose that they serve.
I feel like this one really gets... I mean, it's already got kind of its cringe moments all on its own, but I think it's also worsened by 45-minute syndrome, because you barely have any time to they do try their best to show Elton and how he's invested with his group and how he interacted with that group, but I still feel like it's not quite enough time before they all start dropping like flies.
Okay, so I'll just give my main thing about why I tolerate this episode and why I actually kind of like it now. Because I think until we got Heaven Sent, this was probably the best Modern Who has had on grief, because what it is Elton's running from why the Doctor is so important to him. He's just like, I don't know why he was there.
Okay, yes, and that's really not highlighted enough.
I'm just saying he's fixated on this thing, and at first he finds Ursula and he finds these other people that are also fixated on this thing, and they've kind of dealt with it. I'm not saying the other characters are fleshed out in any like meaningful way, but you can kind of get how they're running from something, and in this group of misfits that like probably never would have like gotten along or met otherwise, they create this like kind of this like rough family, and that's kind of what the Doctor does with his own companions, except it's just people doing that, and that's and then it kind of all goes to hell, and then Absorbalov, blowjob joke, yada yada, it kind of loses it at the end. But I appreciate what it's trying to do, which is kind of why I go through the cringe, is I'm just like, there's some good stuff here I'm going to tolerate. It's not a great episode, don't mistake me. Heaven Sent blows this out of the fucking water, makes it a joke, but I can appreciate it on its own as what it's trying to do, basically.
I hear what you're saying, but I kind of almost don't feel like that's what it's trying to do, because I didn't even really think about that outside of the context of the ending, because it isn't a fucking part of the episode outside the ending. It's not a thing.
No, I'm gonna disagree with you there, because there was one of the ladies pretty explicitly, like, there was a whole like shot dedicated, or little thing.
No, her, yes, but not Elton.
Yes, but that's sort of like a precursor to that theme being like retro. It's a reveal episode. It's a reveal for the character himself. Like, we have an episode where we're familiarized with the character as someone who just like has this weird fixation, and we see that the other people are coming here for that reason, sort of to escape from their own problems. And then at the end, we find out that he was also there for the same reasons. And I feel like that works in the context of the overall series, because that's basically the Doctor. He's always trying to run from his own shit by being with his companions and shit. So I like Skylar, I'm not going to say it's executed amazingly. It could have been fleshed out more. There could have been more of that, but it was there. It was there consistently throughout the episode, and it was there enough that I got the point without, before even Skylar said it, I had thought of that, yeah.
Yeah. Also, like, I won't. The last thing I'll say to this is that I think it's valid to say that, like, a theme should be built throughout the episode in a way that's, like, understandable. And I'll admit, even, it could just be because I was younger, but I didn't get the feeling of, like, oh, this is about grief in some ways and how, like, we as people collectively, deal with that. But I also think there's, like, a value in, like, once you watch the episode, going back through it, which is why I think I didn't get what I now believe that this episode is about grief at its best, because I just didn't rewatch it for the longest time. But when I went back into it with foreknowledge, I was able to get a lot more out of it. And again, whether that's valid or not, or, desirable or not, that's up to you. That's not my job to tell you what to like, obviously. But yeah, that's just something I got out of it. But yeah, as Avery and I have both reiterated, this is not a masterpiece. It kind of falls apart for me at the end, so, whatever.
I don't know. I feel like I understand that it was trying to do that, but I feel like it completely fails at it. Or at least almost completely, because even thinking back about it now, I don't feel like even with it contextualized that way, that I'd really think about it in that way. Anyway, so yeah, this again, the scenes with him interacting with his group, that's good. It does the best it can, given that this is still a 45-minute episode. And I think 45-minute syndrome does really burn this one hard, because I think I probably would have cared a lot more about the characters if they had more time to set them up. And maybe give a little bit more depth to them, other than just sort of very, very flat, basic character archetypes. But yeah, then we're introduced to Victor Kennedy, who just kind of sucks even from the get-go.
I'm amused
literally, but I'm bummed.
I'm amused by the fact that they called him Kennedy. Like, why?
I don't know.
He's the type of villain that only exists in this story. Like, if you thought the Doctor crushed Margaret Blaine like a bug, like, holy crap.
Yeah, no, the only reason he's an entity for as long as he is because the Doctor isn't present for most of the episode. Otherwise, he'd be the type of villain who would show up again in a fucking, like, mini-sode and get defeated in 30 seconds.
Yeah, he's a paper tiger.
Yeah. Then they decide to go for a lead on the Doctor's Companion, which leads Elton to Jackie. I understand the purpose of all of this. I was still cringing and internally screaming and pausing every 5 minutes during this section. But as has been mentioned, I have very deep-seated social anxiety.
I do too. I used to have, can't watch The Office because it's too much cringe. And yeah, but this part was like, oh god, the flirting, it's so bad.
Yeah,
I kind of.
It also, it feels really weird.
Yeah.
And, like, there's something where, like, there's a line where, like, he mentions, like, where's the fucking... There's a line in here, like... Where is it? Oh. The mention... There's, like, a line where he's like, I did like Jackie, but I like someone else even more. And I'm just like, did you? I didn't feel like there was any sort of connection there beyond the sort of obvious, blatant manipulation.
Yeah. Again, I think props for trying to do something. I could see how it's like, oh, you know, let's see someone who's trying to find the doctor and, like, put it through the lens of a companion and the human aspect, and, like, Elton's just so warped by his quest that he doesn't realize he's doing something shitty, which kind of gets, you know, put across at the very end, but I'm just sitting here like, this could have been done way better.
So yeah, he kind of slides his way into Jackie's DMs as you will. Yeah, I feel like this, like, there is supposed to be, like, an actual, like, care or, like, actual sort of investment and relationship there, but the episode doesn't ever really make it feel like it was actually real. Despite what Elton says, and it's just kind of there to move the plot along. And I guess it does kind of back up what you were saying about Elton and how he's running away from stuff and in sort of pursuit of the doctor, and how that causes him to mess up his social life. But again, it's never really, it doesn't ever feel like he's being honest and genuine with Jackie. So
yeah, and I think this is part, like, one of the few parts of the episode where kind of the montage aspect of it drags it down, because at least in my opinion, it did seem that, like, towards the end, like right before Jackie figures out his game, he was, like, actually trying to form a connection. In the beginning, I totally agree. It was just like, okay, I'm gonna do what Kennedy says. He's right. I need to find the doctor. All this stuff, and his intentions going into it were unethical. But I think at the end, it's sort of getting more gray, which is why it actually stings him when she figures it out. It does suffer from not having quite that, like, thorough establishment, again, just because so much of this episode is kind of like montage or like snapshots of things going by, like, very quickly. It can be easy to be lost in the sauce.
Yeah. I feel like when it comes to this episode that it has a lot of good ideas, but almost all of them get dragged down by, like, either a fumble or something that's cringe or 45-minute syndrome.
Sure. And
like, except for Elton himself, almost everything gets hurt by either the pacing or the writing in some way.
Yeah. I'll repeat what I said in the Discord chat, that in comparing this to Idiot's Lantern, I'm more forgiving on an episode that I think has a really good concept but fumbles some of the presentation, to an episode that's, like, not doing anything interesting but is executing everything competently. So, like, I don't know, if someone, like, put a gun to my head and it's like, you have to rewatch a mediocre episode of season 2 Doctor Who, I would choose this episode instead of, like, Idiot's Lantern because of that reason, because at least I can engage even if I think they're falling short.
Yeah, so basically everyone but Ursula gets munched on by the monster of the week, which is revealed to be this grotesque abomination of nature, which I said in chat, this looks like an 80s classic effect and not in a good way. Yeah. Like, it just looks like, it's not even like, it looks disgusting, but, like, it's not even threatening. And I feel like it was a contest monster that won, like, a Blue Peter contest.
I think a
to
different
get in.
monster should have won the contest, honestly.
What?
I think a different monster should have won the
No,
contest.
I like the idea of the concept, because like when like the idea that like you can see its victims like disturbed faces in its body, that's a cool idea. They just absolutely fucked it up
Yeah.
when they were actually trying to when they actually like tried and did it. Like, I think for one thing, the winner said something about how like he was disappointed because he had like envisioned it the size of like a double-decker bus, and like, yeah, if it was huge and like just had like the faces of its victims like it's like screaming or like disturbed in agony, that would be pretty fucking terrifying.
Yeah. It's one of the things that like the kind of camp tone just doesn't work for. And I guess you could say that about any episode that's about grief that also has a camp tone. You can balance it well. It's just it goes really hard once you see the monster.
Yeah, and then it just has like a bunch of like really like almost like this feels like jokes that they'd like try and make on like the Sarah Jane Adventures, with like the like, ha ha, he's got a face on his ass, ha ha. And I'm just like at this point like slumped down in my chair, just devoid of all energy. The light in my eyes has gone.
Fair enough.
So, like, I'm gonna be honest, I missed the blowjob joke. Where was it?
It's at the very end. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and what happens is Ursula gets absorbed too, which again, I feel like there's no actual horror with this episode, which I feel like is a genuinely sad, considering the horror that could have been, like the potential that's there with the monster design. But there's nothing. So yeah, Elton runs out and escapes and is kind of despondent, and then the doctor shows up, and it's revealed that the monster is an Absorbaloff from the twin planet of Raxacorical
Clom.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very okay and moment. I mean, it's just a way to say, yeah, this guy's a pushover too.
Yeah. And I do like that the he's like, yes, you shall join me, and I shall gain all your infinite knowledge, or I'll kill this man. And the doctor's like, sure, okay, I don't care.
Yeah, it was
Which,
a good moment.
yeah, I feel like, yeah, I don't think there would be a doctor that would really be like, okay. Like, I can't see any timeline, any incarnation where they're like, okay, and not just like, no.
Yeah.
Along that line, I also like how, I think it's like Rose's first line out of the TARDIS is like, you upset my mom. I'm like...
That's like one of like, she only has like 5 lines in this episode, and one of them is, you upset my mom.
It's great though. Again, Rose doesn't piss me off for an episode. We got
because
a few
she's
points
barely
there.
in it.
Hey, I take what I can get. I'm drinking my warm beer. Shut up.
This resolution is also like super ass pulley, where it's just like, okay, and then they all the people that he absorbed like decide to like fight back and like push themselves out somehow, and then they break the cane, which was like a field that stopped him from absorbing. So like, is this like an augmentation thing? Because I feel like
the species are absorbolobians, so it would be kind of weird if they didn't do this.
But like it feels like this kind of thing where, oh, if you break the cane, he just completely melts. Feels weird if this is some sort of like innate talent, because how the fuck do they even live then?
Shut the fuck, nerd.
What?
Yeah, no, I don't know.
And then the Doctor, like, it's revealed what Elton's connection to the Doctor is, that he was there trying to stop an alien on the night that his mother died. Which, again, I think that's a good plot point, and anything that has to do with Elton in particular in this episode is pretty good. It's just everything around him that's a garbage fire.
And small Rose point, even though she's, like, understandably upset at him, when he's figuring all this out, she's still comforting him. So it's like, again, like, small touch, good Rose moment. Yeah. It's a shame it goes to hell in, like, 3 episodes, but whatever.
Yeah. And it's mentioned that the Doctor saves Ursula, the last person that he absorbed, by apparently trapping her face in the pavement stone, which they then take...
Sure.
I said this in the Discord chat. If I was given the choice between being a disembodied face in a paving stone or death, I'd pick death.
And she doesn't age either. Like, they say that in the episode.
That just seems like the worst existence.
It also makes sense because she has, like, half a brain, if the indication of, like, how thick the slab is any indication. But the episode has gone into science land, so nothing matters.
And then then there's the joke.
I found it.
Do you wanna read it, Skylar?
Yeah.
Because I sure as fuck don't.
So Ursula says, "At least I'll never age. And it really is quite peaceful. You'd be surprised." Elton: "It's a relationship of sorts, but we manage. We've even got a bit of a love life. Oh, let's not get into that."
Thanks, RTD. Really appreciate it. It wouldn't even fit. It's a fucking pavement stone. There'd be like 2 inches max.
Hey, maybe that's enough for him. You don't know.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined. And again, I do like the takeaway that Elton has here. It's pretty good. It's a nice way to end the episode, at least. At least it ends well, sort of. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we go into ratings?
So I can talk about Avery's laugh is gold.
Wait.
You okay?
I had a thought. Wait.
You want me to go first? You can go.
Yeah, go.
You can hear the cogs turning.
Okay. Okay, I'll go. So his plan Kennedy's plan makes no damn sense. Even in the context of how low tier this situation is, if he's honest about finding the Doctor so that he can, like, be immortal or whatever and never need to absorb again because he's got regeneration energy or whatever the hell that's actually supposed to mean, he kills like 90% of the people working for him, probably because he's too short-sighted to like actually live this long. And so many of the characters are dumb and not putting the points together of what's actually happening to everybody. And especially since they've all interacted with the Doctor in some minuscule way, they should at least be somewhat suspicious about his intentions. Everybody just kind of holds the idiot ball, and the guy dies like a moron. So, yeah, again, it doesn't ruin anything for me. Again, not a great episode, but yeah, Victor Kennedy is a moron. And I wanted to put that on the record in case anybody would want to misconstrue me. Not that enough people watch this to misconstrue me. But yeah.
All right. I
All
guess.
right. Can I put in my additional comment right now?
Okay.
All right. So he looks like a giant snot monster, and I was thinking about like what it would feel like to just like really lean into a smack, just like and the ripples and like the noise and shit. Yeah.
Avery, please cease.
Oh, and like if you smack a face specifically, yeah.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Love this pod.
Anyways, I guess for my rating, as I said, I think this episode has good ideas. I just think that almost every single one of them falls flat on its fucking face and gets real stupid or cringe or pointless or half-baked or underdeveloped. There's definitely good things in here, and it's still nowhere near what I would consider the actual worst episode of the show, Sleep No More. But still, I can't give this episode any more than a 4.
Cool. I like what this episode is trying to do. It fumbles. There's the episode posts a lot of cringe, but I can get through it. But what makes this episode something that I continue to return to is that the actor for Elton and his character make all this worth it, because if this was a less interesting character, I would not care at all. So on its own, this episode is a 4, but because of Elton, I'm bumping it up to a 5.
Yeah, props to fucking Mark Warren.
Yes.
All right, so it's not a great episode, but I feel like it does a lot of good things for the majority of the episode. It fumbles a lot of them, and the absorb a lot sucks. Like, just straight up, it sucks. Everything after that reveal sucks. Besides Elton's personal stuff, that was good, and does good stuff for the episode. It's not a great episode. It's not a bad episode. It kept me entertained. I was, like, actually engaged for most of the episode, which doesn't always happen. So, yeah, props for that. I'll say 6.5.
Good for you. I had to pause every 5 or so minutes, otherwise my body would cease to function entirely.
Cringe be like that.
Anyways, next week we are going to be talking about our last major episode before the finale, Fear Her. I haven't seen this episode in a while. It is noted for being very, very similar to The Idiot's Lantern in its plot structure, and is also noted for being a last-minute replacement episode. So I'm interested to see how that one turns out. I still have a feeling I'll probably like it more than this, but yeah. Until then, you can follow the podcast at B2TARDISPod on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at WheatleyDL, where I will occasionally post like memes and stuff.
Cool. I am Skylar. You can find me on your nearest concrete pavement slab, and also on Twitter at skyhigh9_5.
It's your boy, Eat That Pussy 4445.
You
Back
used that
at ya.
joke last week.
Oh, did I? Damn. Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy, Skinny Penis.
There you go.
Fresh
I'm,
meme. Fresh meme.
I'm fucking your boy, Avery, coming at you at BigFatPenis69, out the Twitter.com. Come check me out. I got the posts. I got the memes. I got the shit. Yeah.
Nice. And we'll see you all next week.